So yes, this is happening. So thank you so much for taking the time.
This is happening, huh?
This is real. This is not virtual. Although who knows what Apple's gonna tell us we need to be.
Yeah, you're a real person here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we Google Halo or something. Have you seen that? That's
right.
Pretty amazing. So yeah, but basically we are in the Adcetera offices, which are beautiful. Thanks so much for having us and set us up. We're super
Welcome
happy
to Adcetera in the video studio.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So it's kind of matrixy. We're kind of,
It's interesting. We end up painting the surfaces every now and then. So
I can imagine.
Next time we can green screen the entire thing, or maybe we don't need to green screen anymore.
I don't know.
AI.
Apple, AI is telling us that maybe we don't need the green screen as much.
Maybe
anymore.
I don't need to be here with you anymore.
But this makes it much more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
So appreciate your time. So as you know, and hopefully everybody that's listening or watching, this episode is all about AI. So
Wait, what?
AI.
AI. I've heard of that recently.
It is something that I'm sure Webster's at the end of the year will be like, do not say that anymore. That is the overest used term or
This
word.
is a movie review of the Steven Spielberg movie, I guess, huh?
Oh, right. Yeah, that was the bear. Didn't he have a funky bear in that one? Yeah,
right. Yeah,
it's always the animals that get the bad rap. But no, so we're going to talk about some cool things because a lot of AI we're hearing is going to be disrupting the marketing and advertising world, which Adcetera is
absolutely
totally in. So that's what we want to talk a lot about
Happy
today.
to.
And so looking forward to it. A lot of people like to do hyperbolic things. Like back in the day, brick and mortar was dead, and we're seeing SEO is dead. But I think it's going to live a pretty good coexistence. We'll see. But there's no doubt that there is a new role in town, and it's called AI prompt specialist.
Oh my gosh!
Have you heard about this?
Wow. It's interesting having conversations with individuals about how you get better information out of your search or out of your prompt or out of your visual design, whether that's Midjourney or DALL-E or whether that's something out of GPT or Bard or one of the whatever tools you basically blink, and there's another way to do it. I think we're finding, and anybody that listens to this can clearly just Google search prompt engineer, and it's or Google search or AI search or chat GPT, whatever it is, right? What are you going to use today? I have no idea. You can find the term out, and it's the better way you describe things at the end of the day. So prompt specialists, prompt engineers. I was on a forum a couple months back, and I used the phrase prompt whisperer from that movie. What was it, Horse Whisperer? Or
yes, that's Matt Damon, I think.
Yeah, or I forgot what it was, Robert Redford or something like that.
Maybe
it was
you're
like,
right, yeah.
But it was like, it's the prompt whisperer, and it's like, how do I get these AI engines to give me what I want, like legitimately want, not just kind of its speculative interpretation of what I think it is, whether that's an image or a series of words or a description for something. And we're seeing more and more prompt science and prompt engineering come out because the way I like to describe where we are in this generative world of AI is that it's still a toddler. It's been fed all this information, right? And it knows. You have kids?
I do.
Remember hearing from them, and they start talking about the holidays, or they start going into their fantasy about these are the things, and then we're going to do this. It's like this whimsy of creativity, right, from kids. We're seeing the same thing from an AI perspective, and you've heard the phrase hallucinations.
I have heard that. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? What is that for people that don't know?
It's fascinating. It's like, every single conversation you and I are going to have today is a rabbit hole into another conversation. It's just going to be so. It's going to be annoying.
Breadcrumbs,
and it's going to be a little bit of a little OCD moment here for those that are trying to keep track of a steady thread. But hallucinations are where you're telling a machine, I need an answer. And it knows nothing but to give you an answer. And so if it doesn't have an answer readily available, it'll kind of make it up. Mm-hmm. And, I hear the phrase misinformation used a lot. That implies some kind of purposeful intent.
Malicious,
you hear unexperienced because it hasn't been exposed to information before. But hallucinations are just AI, not just text, but visuals of kind of where it makes things up. Anybody that's seen pictures with a Midjourney image eons ago, as in a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, right? They always call it the six-finger human. I'm like, okay, we all know that doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. I actually have several friends that had multiple digits. But
oh wow.
But that's like a hallucination from an image perspective, or even from a messaging perspective or a research perspective. If it doesn't have the answer, the machine wants to give you an answer, and it kind of interpolates what that is. And that's kind of what a hallucination is.
Yeah, I think that kind of gets to kind of, for me, the crux of what AI does, which its job is to, if it's a text creating a sentence, it basically looks at what's the most likely word that should be there over time. So it doesn't give you a lot of, necessarily new information. It just kind of says, well, for the most part, this is what it should say. So
it's predictive. Each of these chunks, and we're going to get into the weeds here. Each of the chunks of like words that you use, just using text as an example, it can be kind of bucketed into a token, if you will. Not a crypto token. I see a lot of confusion in terms of like AI and cryptocurrency and tokens. But from a token perspective, if I have a string of words, if I ask it a really long, convoluted question, what AI is picking up, or the generative AI tools that are out there are picking up, or pairs of words, or sections of words, or chunks of words that it puts together. It answers them based upon behavioral analysis that it's done over thousands, millions, billions of strings of text together. Right. So it's kind of interpreting what that is. So, when you ask it a question, it's processing all these things. I use this as a head. I don't know, machine somewhere. Some bytes and bits are being processed somewhere to return a piece of information for you.
Right. I'm seeing some areas where with video and some ray tracing, like 3D software, they're using it to interpolate and kind of guess quicker, what that pixel of light should look like. But sometimes when I think about it, people are in awe when it gives me something back that I already know. But I don't know how much it seems to give things that we don't know. And I'm kind of delving a little bit into kind of the creative part of what AI is going to be good, because it's good at, writing a paper on Thoreau, but I mean, anybody could write a paper on Thoreau, but, a writer coming up with a book, Catcher in the Rye, I don't know, if AI would do that, or if we would think that was great if it was like, hey, I was wanting a Catcher in the Forest or something.
Right. What's the equivalent?
So what's the prompt?
That Salinger would want. I think I think the thing that it looks at from an overall interpretation perspective is, once again, it's a toddler. Yeah. And it's collected all this information, and there's an analogy that I use, and this may not answer your question, but there's an analogy that I use that people think and respond in really kind of 4 categories. You're smart, you're knowledgeable, you're intelligent, and you have wisdom, right? And those are, if you're wise, you've probably been around for a while. That's what they look at, like the person on the hill and the big robes and the long hair. Right. It's like, you're Gandalf, right? You're a wise person. You have people that are incredibly smart that just have just absorptive sponge-like brain that can consume stuff. The way I think of AI right now is that it's really, really smart. It has the world's information in it. The world has trained AI, or has given AI all the information that it has. What it doesn't have, and it's perfecting or getting better at, because you and I are coaching it, or getting better at prompting it, or asking it the right question and validating that it is the right answer. We're kind of in this middle spot here. So when you look at what is creative, what is the interpretation of a book written in the style of somebody else with regard to another subject matter, George Lucas meets Waldo Emerson, right. and I'm going to butcher these names, and all my friends are going to troll me. But at the same time, it's like in the spirit of a Wes Anderson movie that you're going to develop. It's like, okay, what does this look like? And I think you have the smartness of AI that understands, okay, that's what it is, right. But it's still trying to figure out intelligently, okay, what do you mean by that? So right. Finding new images or a new background, or done in the spirit of, Star Wars meets a medieval kind of visual experience, but then also tell me a story with that. I'm not in space. I'm on a continent. So I don't know, continent in a boat instead of spaceships. It has to do all that kind of interpretation.
Well, I guess if you're saying that it's in the toddler phase, then I guess right now we're grading AI based on us giving us known or reliable answers, in a sense. But at some point, it seems like creatively it has to go beyond what we would think or not think, in a sense. And I guess I use the example of Amazon has that dog that's like a little robot that roams around with you. And I've seen reviews on it, and people are like, come here, come here, dog, or do this, and then the dog doesn't do anything, or the little computer, and people are just like, this thing sucks. And like to me, it's like that's what my cat or my my kid does. They never come when I say. So when is it become that to where it's like giving us something that
it's interpreting the word that I always use is intent. What is the intent? And if it hasn't been trained specifically, and that's where the prompt engineering, or I guess in the form of robotics, right? It's something else that, what's the behavioral intent? Like, come here means come here, as opposed to if it heard come here and I was sitting in a park and it was locked in and it was moving in a certain direction at a park, it's like, that's what the definition of come here is. You have to train it repeatedly. So it's come to Steve, in terms of what the intent is. But there's going to be a lot of input mechanisms, like for the robot, as an example, infrared, visual sensors, space planning, recollection of where it's physically been, and then understanding who you are, and then voice recognition of it. Like I said, it's in a toddler phase. Everything is kind of in this area. There are very, very mature, in my opinion, very, very mature AI solutions that are out there, like interactive voice response that we use call tools. Good gosh, some of the we were just talking earlier about some clipping backgrounds out, in terms of visual, what is and is not within the photograph, so I can automatically clip things out. It's we've been training software to do that for decades now through Photoshop or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
But understanding the new intent that we expect, from a better AI is going to be a constant evolution that they're going to be figuring it out.
Yeah. No, I do agree. It's definitely going to be something that's continuing and ongoing. I mean, I always say that, I do audio gear, and sometimes you hear analog, which is the old school where you had the knobs and the actual hardware. And I kind of call it AI in the sense of analog intelligence because it was doing AI underneath. There's a light that it registers to, when to attenuate the thing. But I was there kind of, manipulating the knob. And of course, they did have auto buttons, which I guess that was probably. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at in regards to.
There's an interesting video I did, good gosh, 7 or 8 years ago that broke down. We were trained what AI is, artificial intelligence, but there wasn't really anything artificial about it. It was real intelligence that we were using, whether it was, credit card transaction that we were making, or it was, GPS calculations to an end direction, or even if it was, good gosh, remember the Amazon, the gold box days of like what it suggests to you based upon what other people like, or even
was a big thing.
Exactly, or even like Netflix giving you a next best recommendation to what it's been around for a while, but this kind of evolution of where it's going to go is just getting, I think, better and better. And I know it's hard to think that when everybody's a little uncertain and scared about it, because it's been around for decades. It's not like this is like boom, suddenly it's like, wow, what are we going to do now? It's like we've been benefiting from it for so long. I think now it's just in such the mainstream news cycle, the vernacular. Certainly. You and I we're talking about it with friends, and everybody's going, what are you doing from a business perspective with it? So it's become just so much more current in terms of today's kind of current events.
Well, let's kind of delve in a little bit. We've kind of set the stage with kind of what it is and how it's kind of interacting right now in the toddler phase. We've got consumers that are demanding more and more trust in their ads. We're seeing some of that in regards, how is it if I can't trust an ad, if AI becomes that prominent and trust my eyes, and that's
good gosh, that's everything from the image that you see, that's the words that you're reading, that's even to some degree the source of information that's coming from, the voice that you're hearing. Is the animation that's on the screen actually you, or is it, some kind of digital engineer? The authenticity behind how you, I don't know how to describe this, serialize, like put a serial number to your content. Like, so remember back in grammar school, we learned about bibliographies. You had to make a cite and notation.
Little notes, yeah.
I almost feel as if like we're going to see a time where everything is going to require some kind of meta information that depicts the citation, the notation, the bibliography, so that I can kind of mathematically or from a research perspective look back on it and go, okay, that's exactly where it came from, or you created those words, or that is a legitimate image, or it's maybe not a real image. It's because it's been compiled according to multiple solutions. There's a brand that I went to recently for images at a creative leaders retreat for the One show, and it was I'm not going to mention the name because I'm going to get it wrong, but they are launching an AI tool for its image library. And I think that everybody on the creative side is worried about, rights management and the fees and the rights attribution and the royalties and the licensing. So what this brand was doing was they are building their own kind of dedicated library of assets. And ethically, if an asset was influencing a generative image, for example, like somebody's ear or the background of a photograph or whatever, that original artist got credit for that. And so even though there may be 50 points of influence for that one visual, at least it's distributing out from a licensing perspective royalties per. So if you submitted in your image or asset, commissioned or openly, I forgot which one, the individual got credit for it. So at least you can kind of generate you can guess the sense of authenticity that the photograph was taken by somebody who is a legitimate, and I don't know, nature lover or biographer or whatever the situation is. You get the point of origin. But to your bigger question, current events, just read the news. I think there was something over the weekend. I know that this is kind of endless in time. Memorial Day weekend in 23. There was a citation for an attorney that submitted, represented an airline, a passenger filing suit against an airline, and he cited, I don't know, a dozen or a handful of casework of so-and-so versus airline X or so-and-so versus in the situation where I think the beverage cart hit him and hurt him or something like that.
Okay.
Upon secondary research, none of these cases were legitimate.
Oh, wow.
And this was in a court of law. And I just read the headlines and a couple of the articles on this, but the phrase was, this attorney threw him at the court's mercy, knowing that he summarized his entire his opposition paper based on artificial information that he didn't fact check himself. He or she didn't fact check himself. We're going to look at this in 2 days' time and realize maybe that was entirely faked as a news article. But
yeah,
but I mean that just people are using it and people are trusting it. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of where the human factor comes in, right? Because somebody has to look at this and go, that's not real, or somebody has to call BS on some of this stuff. And I think until systems are built in that actually can do that from an automated perspective, which you may or may not trust.
Yeah, but I mean, how do we call BS on something when the purveyors that are putting out all this stuff, like OpenAI, refuse to hey, sorry, it's like a black box, it's hallucinations, it's whatever.
Right.
I mean, who's going to be is there going to be some agency that there's a court reviewer, there's a code reviewer, a picture reviewer,
just to make sure that you're on the up and up,
yeah,
right?
that somehow, I mean, I guess we need to look in the mirror at the end of the day. I mean, where's where's our goodness heart? Where's our heart and soul of, or is it like, well, it's out there and AI's, like I'm a fool not to do it or something like that, or I don't know.
No, it's like I think we're coming off the heels of like the crypto fiasco with FTX or whatever.
Oh, sure.
And it's not the only one. There's been a lot of these, and where's the human control for something like that? I think we had humans monitoring and measuring that, right?
Yeah.
We had trade commissions making sure that they're in there. So even the human judgment of somebody promoting something can be fallible.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's a horribly negative way to look at
No,
things.
but I think to extend, I mean, that's what the housing crisis was. Wasn't there an agency that was like, no, these loans are good,
great.
or I forget the agency. There was a Standard and Poor, or
whatever the organization was. We all saw that movie, right, with Christian Bale. Or whatever it was. It was a great movie.
Good
but I think at the end of the day, there's going to be some regulatory needs in there, and of course, good gosh, that's the thing that we don't want. We want to be able to freeform this, and I think Sam Altman, who was OpenAI, went in front of Congress or somebody recently and was basically like, don't do it now, don't regulate us or over control us right now, because we're kind of in this growth phase, right? We're in this
getting
figure it out
$10 billion
phase
from Microsoft.
Yeah. Write you a giant check. But the interesting thing is this: I equate today, 2023, to a reminder of kind of where we were at the beginning of the internet, or the commonly used internet that we know called the web. I mean, the internet's been around for a lot longer before the web, or the DARPANET, or whatever the secure net was beforehand. But the web only came around since about 92. And I remember I've been asking some friends, this is the toddler mindset, right? I'm asking friends, it's like, for the people that are old enough in the room, do you remember what your favorite search engine was in 94, 95? And it's things like Lycos and Alta Vista and Netcrawler and Ask, which turned into Ask Jeeves, and Yahoo. And, the brand Google didn't even come into play until like 98. And it didn't even hit mainstream until after, well after that, right? And it's one of those things. There's a great video out there. I forgot what the brand is. Visual Capitalist, I think, and they do this, browser over the last since 92 or something like that, and you see this growth and decline and growth and decline, and MSN turns into something else, and web crawler disappears, and it turns into something, Netscape disappears. Anyway, it just shows about the modern growth cycle, and Google just goes into sprints at the very end.
Never looks back.
But I'd say like today, you haven't heard any of those brands, right? Some of those may be unfamiliar to folks that were like mainstream popular, evangelizing. You got to use Alta Vista. You got to use Lycos. You got to use X, Y, and Z because it's the best ever. Now it's like, there's a verb for Google. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but, there is a time of innovation. There is a time of evolution. Is the world of search from that perspective, going to face another shift? And I would imagine it's interesting. I use the phrase, people are searching a lot, but what we really want to do is find. And what some of the generative AI solutions out there, specifically ChatGPT, I use a program called Barely. I find my answers, and I have to fact check them. I will fact check them probably for at least another year or two. So I spend an unnecessary amount. But, the hour that it would take me to kind of click around and do some research for a platform and read through a prospectus or an annual report or a product page for brand, for 20 brands, I can limit that down to, 20 seconds. And then I can highlight those, for example, curate those, and then spend time on each of those. So rather than spending, a net 5 hours doing research, I'm spending a net hour doing research, because it's giving me like, what are the most popular marketing automation tools right now? Or what's the definition of what, a CSO does within the marketplace or whatever. And it's just accelerating that. So back to what is AI? What I was talking about earlier, it's like, is it assistive intelligence? Is it, adaptive intelligence? Is it something that is, helping us more so than it is replacing us? And so that'll be an interesting, I know that was a rabbit hole, but that'll be an interesting journey that will take over the next handful of years.
So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit in regards to, do you think AI is going to remove the creativity from the industry, or is it going to enhance the creativity of humans and the way that they work?
I think it's going to shift. It's not going to remove it. I think that the dumb stuff, the menial stuff, the stuff that, man, we wish we had more time to focus on ideation and creation rather than just, I got to edit that pixel. I got to change that frame. I got to, change the timeline on this video. Right. Some of these things will be optimized. I don't think it'll ever replace the human creativity element. I think if anything, it'll help augment us and explore different ways of doing things. And you always look at these future movies, right? And it looks ridiculous. Some are really, kind of depressing and kind of it's falling apart, right? And it's kind of this, I forgot what the word I'm using, this dystopic world, right? But then you get these other ones where it's like the humans are just so flamboyant, right? They're like dressed up, and it's like they look completely different. I think it's going to force us to rethink how and define what creativity is as a sense. creativity in my mind is not just the visual design and the sweetness of the words. It's about how creative a strategy is. It's about how creative the behavior patterns for how a customer engages with a website or goes to a retail event, or how creatively individuals can get together in a room and talk about ideas. The definition of creative. I think is going to not, this is so cheesy, but it's like it's going to have a new wave. There's going to need to be another kind of awareness for what the definition of creative is going forward, because we've been doing this. We've been trying creativity in different areas. We the humans have been trying creativity in different area. I think now it's going to take some of the burdens away, and the first evolution of AI is obviously all the stuff that we've seen, but it goes back to the word usage. I really think it's going to be assistive. It's going to help us do some of the things that we could focus on better, to create better outcomes for our clients, or better, I don't know, things that we see on TV or things that we witness in the wild.
Right.
I'm optimistic about it.
Would it sadden you if instead of having a room of somebody that knew motion and video and audio and of course copywriters and all of that, and then you see a room of just AI prompt specialist? Is that would that sadden you, or you think that's not what's going to happen?
I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that the people that are in the space of the specialists now will become a little bit more generalists, so that they can understand more about how copy flows into a motion piece, or how a design element that is brand specific can be augmented with something that is completely out of the box, or a different type of tool. I don't think that. I think the hard work, not that the human participation is hard work. The monkey work, right? The stuff that is going to just be what robots can do will be given to the robots, and we're just going to need to become more, like I said, the director and the conductor of some of these components. I think that everybody that I talk to is recognizing how they can do their job differently. I'm not going to say the word better yet. We'll wait, but differently now than they did theoretically yesterday. And I think that, creative participation and growth is going to be a significant part of that.
So there are some people, we've got Apple, in the next week or so, going to do their big WWDC conference. A lot of people are thinking they're going to unveil these goggles, these new AR goggles or something. And there's a lot of people that think that all these roads lead to Meta being right, that we're all going to be in this, metaverse. And some people refer to it as Ready Player One.
Right.
That kind of thing. So the road that leads there, and obviously you've got Microsoft that, wants to pay billions for Activision, the gaming. We've seen a lot with Disney and the way that they've made some of their, actually generating the backgrounds in real time, so the actors are in the thing.
Epic Studio, Epic.
So gaming. Can you talk to us about gaming and its place in AI, and certainly with ads and the ability to gin up ads, I guess, real time? It's not like it's just.
No, I remember. Now this is going to be. There was an article I read about personal marketing, right? Not mass marketing. And so if you and I are playing a game, like a driving game, for example, and this kind of goes back to the kind of sponsorship and monetization of brands within a space. What you may see in your next driving game, for example, on the billboard or the sign or the side of a car or the restaurants that are on the side of the road, or I don't know, the other car next to you, might be replaced by, it's already being done, by the way, but might be even further replaced by paid brands that own your space, that own your demographic specifically, because you have your own personal demographic, your own spending, your own habits, et cetera. I know that this is a little bit more about from a marketing perspective, but from a gaming perspective, games have influenced so many things of how we interface and use technology today. Like one of the first interfaces for a GUI was through gaming. A graphical user interface was through gaming. It's like, get off, stop playing those games, kids. But yet that interface, that mindset kind of taught us that we don't need to see lines of code to interface with a computer. Maybe we use a mouse and a human interface device, a HID or something like that. And so I think gaming, we'll continue to see components of that specific to like metaverse or meta or those kinds of virtual experiences, which differ from augmented reality, replacement reality versus augmented reality. Augmented reality is going to be cool when I can get personalized information because I wear glasses. If I can get these lenses replaced with like directional finding or like, I don't know, star ratings from a restaurant over here, or reminders that I've got to run back to the office for a meeting, or I've got an incoming call or something like that. I think that those are all going to be cool, but there's nothing artificial about that. That's just information.
Right, just another way to get it.
Yeah, I think the interpretation of that is really what we're going to see next. So that's what I'm looking forward to in terms of, big brand releases. Google had their big brand release. Microsoft made their big brand release with, some of the Azure OpenAI relationships that you're talking about, their investment in ChatGPT. And, it'll be interesting to see what Apple has. The virtual world, it's real. It's without a doubt real. It's interesting to hear favoritism for Metaverse, not the brand, and not. This immersive reality worlds have been around for quite some time. For anybody that's been in gaming, there's always that escape, right? I take on a character, I have certain powers, I have certain capabilities, I can fly, I can do all that stuff, and I think the legacy of nerddom is turning into like mainstream. It's like, what can you do, right? As a race car driver, or as a sports enthusiast, or as a concert goer, or, whatever in these spaces. And I think, visualizing the worlds, in real time, as opposed to, you're in video, you understand what it takes to like render a file, how long it takes to do that, all the processing requirements, the heat and the power, and all the latest technology requirements. And today's technology, coming out of like Epic, for example, it's doing it in real time. It's just nuts.
There's a reason why they call it Unreal.
Yeah, and it's exactly, and it's just like, oh my gosh, is there a need for, I don't know, remote photo shoots anymore? Because if I could just do this with my hands and suddenly I'm in the Arizona desert, or I'm driving over a bridge in Italy, that saved a whole lot of money and time. So anyway, gaming has kind of given us these artificial environments that we've seen. They've given brands a place to kind of monetize and own space, all the way back from Second Life to today's all the properties that are out there today from a metaverse perspective, down to the things that you and I may or may not game at, Minecraft or Fortnite, or some of these brands and immersive experiences that we play in.
Right. And you think that brands will come to you, or are they coming to you and say?
For us, I would love for them to. My goodness, I would love for us to get into the gaming side of it. No, there are dedicated spaces. You have experts in that area that actually understand that much more so than we do. We honestly, from a technology perspective, they're probably a little bit light years ahead in terms of actually tying into the code base of the game rather than layering on visuals. It's like taking a file and uploading it to something, as opposed to building a file that it's integrated into the code, so it's rendering it in real time.
Yeah, well, I saw the NVIDIA keynote, and I think that code and the stuff that they're doing in real time, have you had a chance to check that out?
That video is just unreal.
It's unreal.
Not to competing brand. Yeah, I can't say that. Yeah.
But when they showed, that the person was generating that question in real time, that for those that didn't watch it, you go into this bar and you see somebody bartending, and you're walking, first person view, you turn, and then you interact with the bartender and say, how was your day? And then the bartender says, well, my day was great.
Don't do that voice again.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to buy you a drink now.
My day was great. Brands are trying to kind of capture share outside their core business. I'm thinking Bud Light, Miller Lite, and all that. Is that a little touchy?
Good gosh.
I only ask from your perspective as an ad person.
Oh, good gosh.
But let me give a little bit more context if you want to take a swing at it.
Sure.
So we're seeing that some of these brands that have been around a while, I'm thinking Bud Light, Miller Lite. I think Target just got into the fray. And basically they're kind of trying to extend their share into other demographics.
Yeah.
So, and by doing so, unfortunately, are alienating the core of and are getting some negative response. As an ad person, what do you think about that?
Boy, this is a touchy subject because I would equate this down to one word: overcorrection. And as in the space of marketing and advertising is one thing. As an individual in a minority status, as a person. Even at an age group perspective, right? My demographics kind of fit personally in multiple areas. Every single brand has one thing to align towards, and that's shareholder value. Every single brand has one thing to focus on, and that is you're always going to look to penetrate new markets, increase market share, grow, take over competitive space, et cetera, et cetera. The way some brands do it, and I know I'm actively skirting the subject direct on, but the way that brands actively do that is ultimately up to them. And you can see the reaction, you can see the appeal, you can see the resentment, you can see all of those things. And I think that the reason why I use overcorrection is that you have groups everywhere. There's not just one group. You have groups that feel as if they are maybe underrepresented or being attacked or being ignored or whatever the situation might be. And I think you see this dichotomy of opposites going on. And so there's always going to be this push and pull. Here's the thing. And a friend of mine told me about this decades ago from a PR perspective. It doesn't matter, except for in this instance, there have been significant losses. It doesn't matter from a PR perspective about whether it's good or bad. It's a point. Your name's in mention. Today's ability to communicate through social channels or through text messages or through the media or whatnot are multifold, right? So that message of your point doesn't matter, yes or no, up or down doesn't really matter because it's a positive PR point. May have changed significantly, and so I think that we are going to see kind of where we land as a culture, as creative agencies, as brands, even as individuals in terms of where that goes. And I as somebody who's fairly neutral in mindset perpetually, this overcorrection I see kind of everywhere, and I don't really have a comment or a position that I want to worry about on that perspective, but it's happening, and I think that everybody's wanting to lay stake to some claim, and it's as much good, there's as much evil.
Does it get back to what we were talking about earlier, the trust? I mean, is this, I've seen Bud Light in particular. I mean, they used to have what they called the twins, they did some very, misogynistic marketing of themselves.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're going to, extend their beer to, an LGBTQ person.
Right.
I mean, is that maybe what's kind of coming into play as well? Or?
I don't think so much. I think it might just be, everybody's favorite word is zeitgeist and kind of what's going on in here. There's the populism of the zeitgeist. There's the negativism of it. I think there's always going to be this fractionalization. I think at the end of the day, I always look at like what's the harm, like what's significant harm, either side, like legitimately either side. And I know that it sounds as if there are different opinions that align towards certain, either whether it's a political spectrum or a lifestyle spectrum or a location spectrum or whatever it might be, different countries, different different worlds. Not meta worlds, just different worlds in
Yeah,
general.
right. You got to be so
You
particular
got to be so
these
careful
days.
today. But I don't think it was done. I'm not an expert in that space specifically. I
Right.
mean, aside from just an opinion, but
I
it's one of
appreciate
those
that.
things where it's like I've heard, people tripling down on a brand for or against. And I think as long as the human emotion is going to come into play, which is the one thing in theory that AI can't replace, that's one of those things that we have to lean into. It's like, what's going to tug at, your heartstrings and your opinions and your emotions to allow you to make a decision to buy or not to buy. To quote Hamlet, that's the question. That's not what he said, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah, I'm going to check that. I don't
yeah,
need to.
okay,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
You might
fact
want to
check
like
that, yeah.
GPT that.
So let's kind of extend that a little bit more then in regards to consumer demand authenticity, kind of keeping with that that theme. Social media ads are now welcoming the rise of the influencer marketing, and I'm also hearing employee advocates is kind of now becoming a term. So if Adcetera puts out a post, then I need all my employees to like it and repost it and share it and do whatever they need to do with it. But where is Adcetera in regards to influencer marketing? Is that something that you guys are entertaining?
Yeah, it's absolutely actually something that we're actively getting into. But this is the interesting thing. I remember when viral was a thing.
Sure.
Right. I mean, this was 15 years ago, and people would come to us, and clients would come to us and say, "I need to launch a viral marketing campaign."
That's pretty,
And you kind of look at them, and you think of what defined viral back in the day, and it was somebody tripping on something, or it was a misfortune, or it's kind of oopsies, right, in terms of that. And the authenticity that quickly spiraled after that was, boy, that was staged. And so, the influencer marketing perspective is really hard because it's not about you and I or, an advertising committee or a group that's judging whether or not this is. It's real consumers, and whether you reach out to them. Brands can immediately get crushed if they try too hard, and because, the communication cycle is so quick. Right, I can post, I can get feedback, I could take it down immediately, but somebody's capturing it. It lives on in time. Blah blah blah. So, the positivity or the negativity just perpetuates beyond that. Influencer marketing is always going to be a tricky component of it. It's whether or not you have the right audience, whether or not you have the right message, whether or not you actually have representation by the right property. And I hate to say human beings as property, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you are a great sponsor or a promoter of product X, Y, or Z, or vertical market X, Y, or Z, or you're known for this thing, the positive is that you can jump on that train, right? You can get along
pretty
with
easy,
it, right?
yeah,
Pretty
quickly
easily.
getting up.
You can buy your space and time. Just as equally, you can get damaged by it as well too, and you can look at all the insights of bannings of individuals, like back to the gaming thing. I watch a lot of Twitch. Unfortunately,
nice.
maybe too much Twitch. But like the influences that are in that space, you get a lot of folks that are being banned. You have folks that are being canceled from an Instagram perspective or from a TikTok perspective, and so it has to be done very carefully. Authenticity is core, and unless you can really get and encapsulate and define what exactly that is, from your brand, who's delivering it, what the message is, what the script is, the visual delivery of it, that can quickly fall into the ooh.
Yeah, and the people that I've talked to that have kind of dabbled in it, from a client reaching out to an influencer, it almost seems like you're basically part of your price is them producing it how they want it, because hey, I got to keep my brand, so they produce it, they edit it, they post it, and however, and you kind of are paying for a one time, or not, just an upfront fee of, okay, I'll come and do this one day and shoot a bunch of stuff, and then I'll post one or two things. But as an ad person, and then also thinking about your clients, like, that's giving up a lot of control.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't have right to be in this game. You do, right? They own their space.
Yeah.
And there are influencers that I've talked with major brands. There are influencers that absolutely will not take paid work, because they don't believe in a brand. I know influencers that won't take paid work, period, not because they don't believe in a brand. They just do like a review themselves, period.
Oh, okay.
Right? And if you send them a product, good luck. If it gets featured, awesome. If it doesn't, then, it may be in the testing cycle of something that didn't work.
Okay.
And I'm just talking, my bias is obviously from a technology or a tech perspective, but I'm sure that there's food and cosmetic and lifestyle and all these other ones that are out there. And I think, you quickly get, there's the marketer's playbook, and then there's the consumer's playbook. The marketer's playbook, I hear, you don't ever want to work with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so because they charge you too much, or, they don't represent the content well enough. And, even though you're under contract, you don't have the ability to really control what they're publishing themselves, even though, they're just a hired gun. And I think the consumers see that. They still have, millions of followers and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of likes and views and impressions. But at the same time, we see some of those brands we see one of those influencer brands that are heroes in this space. But then, just think about today, somebody that you really, really followed 5 years ago. Where are they?
Oh, true. Yeah.
And it's just amazing how some of them just come and go. But anyway, it's something as a whole we have to get into, primarily because you never know when that interest is going to be spiked by an influencer or by a brand.
Mm-hmm. I'm also hearing a little bit more as again, there's so many fights going on for people's eyeballs and attention, so it's kind of now becoming ultimately an attention metrics, and how much that they're kind of shaping the optimization efforts and ultimately the campaign performance. So are you looking at attention metrics from an ad perspective, or is it ultimately, before this campaign, they were selling 1,000 shoes, and now after they're selling 1,200?
1,200 shoes, so an incremental 200 unit increase.
Well, is that it was now 10,000?
Or 10,000. Well, just explosive growth. I just watched Air over the weekend, right? Movie. And I remember the end state was, once again, fact check it, please. But, the end state was like the expectation was to sell X amount of basketball shoes. But, the number that was reported according to the film was, exponentially higher.
Right.
And talk about the world's biggest influencer, however many years ago that was huge, from a Nike perspective. In terms of like performance, yeah, it's more than just the click and the vanity. It's actually saying, did you watch the entire video? And delivering metrics in terms of whether or not, the actual viewer consumed the entire video, or sat through and clicked through an entire survey, or followed the entire journey all the way from, search to platform to site to conversion and ultimately sale. And, this varies significantly from a B2B to a B2C perspective. But, everybody wants to know more, justify more return. You have to be able to demonstrate that. And that the whole category of, we've grown significantly in the performance marketing space, which is, the expectation that the 20-year-ago agency would have handed over creative to a brand, that the brand then executes themselves because they have their own internal team that manages their platform, or they have their other brands or other agencies that do the loading, placement, fulfillment, buy, whatever.
Right.
Now, everybody's trying to do more with less, and that includes the roles of the agency. And so we have had to step up immensely over the last decade plus. Fortunately, we've kind of had that on the crystal ball to make sure that we could do that. But it's not just about, did you deliver the creative at the end of the day? Did the creative connect? Did it generate a return? The return on the advertising spend or overall investment is something that we have to focus on. And that goes all the way down to, did you watch the video?
Right.
Did you share it with some friends? Did they actually watch the video? And so on and so on.
you kind of mentioned in regards to AI and trying to, do more with less. Can you speak to what Adcetera is doing in regards to that, or?
Right now, I would say from an efficiency standpoint and the expectation for clients to get variations in response, I'd say the one statement that we'll make is that we are still humans at the end of the day. And the stuff that we will always do will always be curated, directed, managed, optimized, judged, opined based upon a human perspective. And I think that we will always, have that human factor. And, we are using AI in terms of trying to create optimized workflows. However, until these platforms begin, and I'm talking about all the platforms, until these platforms begin to come out of the toddler phase and have some of the governance from a legal perspective, the rights management perspective, the licensing perspective, the ethical, royalties and fees that are paid to the creators, whatnot, until all of that detail, and I don't see it starting anytime soon. It's still experimental, without a doubt. Hence the the analogy to the lawyer that was using it overall. I mean, that was just horrible. The way I equate it is that we've been playing music all along, right? And so there's this orchestra out there. It's got winds, it's got brass, it's got percussions, it's got strings, and AI is quickly replacing all these instruments. What you and I, as the humans, have to do is we have to be able to curate that and direct that accordingly. Same orchestra created Star Wars for John Williams, or Mission Impossible for Hans Zimmer, or whatever the soundtracks are, right? But they sound so different, right? Same orchestra in theory, but the human behind that's conducting it is different. And I think that we apply the same. We're, it's funny. We're updating some of our messaging right now. One of the things that we want to say is that this is not auto-generated.
Oh, nice.
None of the stuff that is auto-generated, it is always coming out of a human. If there is something that accelerates an insight, accelerates research, supports verification or validity or anything, those are the things that we will use it for. But as of right now, we recognize that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
And we are working on active practices in terms of figuring out, okay, where is the most logical fit? We're not just going to run into it.
Right. Yeah, there's an agency, WPP, I think.
Small group.
Small, yeah. Yeah, just a little. They're toddlers. But they, I'm not sure if you saw, but for Nike, you were talking about, they continue over all these years. It's amazing the run that Nike has had. And I know that they've had brilliant creative along the way, but still, the brand itself is still so relevant. But they put together, Serena Williams, the greatest of all time. And, what would it be like if we had 1999 Serena Williams play 2017 Serena?
Right.
So through the advent of AI, they were able to generate that and put it into a little bit of a 2-minute video. And, again, the thing is greatness never,
Sure.
really ages or whatever. But I thought that was a pretty clever way of using, AI. But is that a gimmick? Is that over time? Again, it's just kind of...
Well, it's permission and likeness thereof, right? So obviously that was a sanctioned piece. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. If you and I are watching a future match and we're only watching that future match because, rookie player is playing senior player or whatever, right. Because of that, as long as we're made aware and nobody's trying to pull the wool over our eyes, I think it'll be perpetually entertaining. I was listening to a podcast the other day about transferring digital likenesses. Like if you ever hear the radio and the person's coming in saying local to Houston, blah 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 blah, but they're a national superstar, right? One of the things that they were talking about is if the time to market to develop that is reduced significantly, rather than having this person, a celebrity, read 50 different, let's just say there's 50 states, right? How long does that take? The recording, is it cost? Does that really matter? Is it worth the investment, et cetera, et cetera? Do they just become digital spokespeople, but they're sanctioning it? I think that goes back to the ethical nature of this kind of generative AI. As long as I'm aware of it, or as long as I'm promoting it, or even sanctioning it, I think that becomes a completely different conversation.
Yeah, this is definitely obviously, it's obviously not her actually playing herself. They just kind of AI-wise and then pretty cool thing or whatever.
But it's super
like
cool,
130,000 games and 5,000 matches, and I'll leave it to everyone else to go check to see who won.
It's like war games, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, it's like, do you want to play a game? So we talk about creatives versus moneymakers. This question is in regards to the push-pull of what an ad is really supposed to do, make people buy a product or be aware of a product, but the ad should make the client money versus the agency getting an award. Is advertising at its best when it's both?
Creative on behalf of the client. Well, I think here's the deal. At the end of the day, every bone in our body is focused on helping the client succeed, period. We think of clients that come to us more looking for help and support rather than, the luck to be working with them, perspective is a little bit of a, having been on the client and the agency side my entire, like literally halfway through, half and half. The reason why I have outreach to agency is that I know that there are more like minds like me or you or whatever it is out there that I can hire to coalesce an idea, right, and collaborate and develop something. So at the end of the day, the empathy is that, at least from our perspective, is that you're asking us to help you do something that if you couldn't do yourself, you wouldn't ask us to do. Either it's a staffing issue or it's an innovation or it's I literally don't know what to do, or it could be a budget issue. I can't afford to do this with the broader spectrum of agencies that we work with or take the effort to do it. So we always focus on that from a client level perspective. The awards that are cool, we always want something award winning. And I would say the one thing that does more so is, boost our chest, like lets us be more proud. If anything, that probably helps in a very substantial way from a recruiting perspective, more so from that. And, we don't generally have a recruiting challenge from our perspective.
Definitely.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where we always want to be in the operate, and it sounds so cliche and like, oh, it's so staged, but it's like we always want to make sure that everything's in the best interest of the client, and hence our adoption of performance marketing and media recently. Hence our kind of leaning into AI to support what you ultimately, the client, are going to come back with and say, what should I do with this? We're speculating and experimenting today so that we can give you the answer tomorrow and provide some guidance, not because, we're just bored.
No. And I will say, you guys did receive some awards recently.
Yeah, I think it was a couple weeks ago we went and we received Crystal Awards for really two things. One, it's fascinating. As much as we're talking about replacement value, right? Retail is dead, print's dead. It's gonna be replaced by the web. Nobody's shopping online. Everybody's shopping online. Nobody's going into retail. We won an award for retail.
Nice.
And I like to call retail like the last step where a brand can shake hands with the consumer.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I'm not just clicking on something, right? It's kind of where I can introduce myself to the brand. And the other one was for standing up an entirely new brand, where a company came to us and said, I've got two products that kind of have some overlap. Can I build a net new product to kind of sit on top of that to represent like a portfolio, if you will? And we were able to launch a site and come up with a new logo and help drive event traffic to a regional, national, international event that they host annually. So
wonderful.
Lots of fun. That's an example of brands coming to us asking for help.
So this will be kind of the last question, then we'll kind of wrap it up, and then I'll defer to anything that maybe we didn't speak on or anything. But this is a kind of more traditional branding question. In regards to, HBO was the quintessential.
Oh, wow.
the quintessential movie brand back in the day. It's where movies made
or cable brands.
Yeah. Then they go to HBO Max,
right?
And people are like, "What the?" And then now they're dropping the HBO,
going to Max,
and going to just now become Max. Do you have thoughts from an industry perspective? Do you agree with that? Do you not agree with that? Do you see where they're going? Or
wow, I think initially the thing that comes to mind is competition within the namespace. I think if I say the word Max to people that grew up in the cable world, another brand comes to mind.
Yeah,
maybe they're a sub parent. I don't know. I don't know the brand tree or the academics behind it, but I think of Cinemax, and obviously smart room of individuals. If it's the same property, good. If it's different property, I'm sure the smart individuals in the room did all their research in there for that. This is the one thing that I'll say. I like it overall. Primarily because it's an evolution of something that might be meaningless to people that don't have gray hair. I forgot what HBO stood for, but it was like home box office, I think,
correct.
Or something like that.
Was kind of originally it was just that's where you got the movies that were in the theaters and came there, and then they started original programming.
Sure, and if I ask people that are under 30 what a box office is, what's the relevancy in there? And that's not a get off my lawn moment. That's one of those, if there's no harm, I don't think it's going to create a foul for them. And so I like the idea of the Max. They've spent a tremendous amount of energy on it.
Yeah.
You look at all the ads and the sponsorships and the spokespeople that they have introducing it, not even on their own property. They've hit the general space, but I'm a fan overall. I don't think that's a bad thing. I like the new logo and the look and the style. There's good energy for it. It might be a nice reboot. I'd also say that space is very crowded right now.
Oh, very.
Because
sure.
The categorical cable days are kind of gone. Everybody's streaming now, and you're competing for that next logo in your whatever tool you're using. Apple TV or a Fire Stick, or you're built into your TV, your Roku or whatever. And I think that the letter prominent stands out. I can see the color differentiation, so I can go directly to it from a design perspective. So I'm a fan. I haven't read anything about it. Maybe my opinion will change, but
Well, I guess if they're
that's a good surprise.
If people start wondering where their HBO is, and maybe they'll start thinking about it. But well, awesome. Well, I think to kind of sum things up, then I think what I'm hearing you say is that at the end of the day, ideas are even more royal than they were before, and it really is about the idea and the brand fit and the execution and the strategy and the end game, and AI. You don't think is going to take that down? It's only going to enhance it.
No, it's still early. Yeah, that's a good summation. I think that, like I said, the toddler knows certain things, right? Because we've taught it certain things, but we're continuing to train it and gain experiences. Now, that may change. I'm going to pause because I could have said 5 years, but that could be stupid, right? Because it's like that'll change in 6 months, and whatever. Because every time you hit refresh on your news, there's a new tool that comes out.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's going to usher in a kind of a renaissance in how we as humans have to think, using a new set of tools. It's kind of like I don't have to go to the library anymore to do my research paper. That paradigm hasn't existed in quite some time.
Right.
And it's made it more convenient. It's brought things to us the same way that the internet has brought things to us. I think AI is going to bring things to us so that we can activate our minds a little bit differently, considering these new tools at hand.
Nice. Awesome. Did you have anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you wanted to expand on? Or?
I with anything that's innovative in nature, I consider. I'm not an expert at any one thing, but the confluence of a lot of things creates a new thing. The divergence of a thought, right? And so as we see these tools come together, for example, modem plus this thing called the internet plus this thing called the web, created opportunities for, I don't know, e-commerce or retail or whatever. Those things didn't exist, the same way that mobile smart devices, didn't exist with 5G connections, and think about how we're using the app. So we can speculate. I think we can think about, but what's going to be ahead in the future is going to be something that is going to mix a lot of these different things together.
Yeah, I think you were saying about the speed of change again. I'm hearing that GPT-5 is going to be video, so I think we're all about to get our minds blown yet again.
We're actively involved in a generational project for businesses where you accelerate. You accelerate the ability to interpret and analyze your own content, inside your protected walls as a business. And,
okay. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that just when you think, you develop a process or a methodology or a way to, govern ingestion of content, a new thing comes up, like you said, and good gosh, it's going to be video now. Transcripts of meetings, copy and paste the podcast into something and give me an analysis, and quickly. We're just at the beginning of kind of this. A friend of mine who is deep into this space introduced me to a term that I probably should know, but I didn't know, called corpus. The corpus of knowledge, and smart people out there probably get what that is, but the corpus of knowledge is just grown substantially, primarily because of what's going on right now. And so until the corpus of knowledge, the body of information that was out there that is being consumed by these generative AI solutions, that is now publicly available, it's going to continue to grow. So we're going to feed more information to, like you said, videos now or whatever it might be. Who knows where that's going to take us, but we do know and see that the ability to analyze and kind of consume this information and prompt us with responses has just been amazing so far. And so, we have to keep our eye on making sure that it's accurate and legitimate.
It always goes back to that.
It always goes back to that.
And I guess lastly, are you excited?
I'm excited. I mean, I think just when you think that we were here for the internet, we were here, we were here for space travel, we were here for, I don't know, whatever it might, streaming. We're here witnessing the kind of mainstreaming of AI, and I think the nerds in the room know that it's been there for quite some time, and I think now it's come to the mainstream. It's come above the surface, and it's a matter of, okay, now what is it that we should do with it?
Thanks so much to our special guest, Pagogh
I think we also
Cho,
need to be asking, what should we not do with it?
Yeah,
because that's going to be, we're right in the middle of this right now, which is just going to be fascinating.
Yeah, Nefarious always gets a lot of media press, but hopefully, we stick to the good stuff.
That goes back to your word, trust.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate what Adcetera is doing, and I would definitely recommend everybody. We'll put a link down in the description to check you guys out and all the cool stuff that you're doing. Yeah. And we look forward to watching how all this turns out.
Just stay tuned. It's going to change.
Thanks so much to our special guest, Pagogh Cho, Chief Strategy Officer with Adcetera. To not miss an episode, please be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. The show is produced and edited by Half Full Productions.